as a way of saying that they are going out and they're murdering, making the claim that they were murdering uh, Christian children, okay, in order to do like blood rituals and stuff. So this is where the plot thickens. This is where it starts getting really, really um, demented and horrible. This is the stuff that eventually led up to the Nazi regime gaining power. They used the blood libel and ritual murder libel, whatever you want to call it, blood accusations as a way of fueling uh, anti-Semitic tropes, basically. That's what it was. It was tropes, and it just it began to grow, and it began to grow, and they also used blood libels and claims that Jews required blood so that they could use it in the baking of matzos. That's supposed to be unleavened, flattened bread, which is eaten during Passover. They also had earlier versions of the blood libel that accused Jews of ritually reenacting the crucifixion while they did it. You know what I mean? And this is all a history that people don't want to talk about because it's very, very evil to a lot of people. It doesn't matter. Like the only people that take enjoyment out of this are um, hateful, anti-Semitic, white supremacists, and that's basically it. And they know the story behind all this stuff, and you can find it. It's everywhere. Okay, there's more on this subject on the internet than there is for most other things. But nobody looks for it because they don't know about it. The people who do know about it are pretending that they aren't white supremacists, or they know about it and they just don't care. Okay, this this is something that's very disturbing to me in a society where we're supposed to be wanting to be better than what we used to. I'm starting to see this same kind of behavior pop up again. And I don't know if most of the people that I'm around who are talking this kind of stuff is even aware of that's what they're promoting. You know what I mean? I don't know that. But I do know that when they speak this stuff, this is what they're promoting. It doesn't matter if they believe in it or not. Okay, it doesn't matter if what they say. This is what you're promoting. Okay, this what you do and what you say needs to be held accountable. Okay, you are promoting the idea that frickin' these people are killing frickin' Christian babies so that frickin' they can commit frickin' uh, blood rituals. Okay, and you're actually selling the product. You're being introduced to this stuff in the first place, and you're being introduced to this stuff by people who are they don't want these Jews around. They want them all dead. It doesn't, you might be a person who just has a problem with some of the political issues that are going on concerning Jews, okay? But you need to understand that there's a guy standing behind you who doesn't frickin' actually care about that. They want to see all these Jews dead, okay? And they've been doing this for quite some time, all right? Now, before it was the Jews who were being persecuted, the same stuff was being used against um, people who were freaking not Jew. Okay, this was used by people who were Canaanites, This was used by people against people who were Phoenicians. This was used by people who were Roman, and it all started with Moloch. Okay, it all started with this belief about Moloch, and Moloch was written in the Old Testament, one verse right after the other. Okay, and I can go through some of those. But getting back to Carthage, the one thing I do have to point out is the deities that were in Carthage were not named Moloch at all whatsoever. Now Baal Haman was the chief god of Carthage. Okay, and Carthage was a Phoenician colony, and it became powerful. It was a powerful maritime empire, and it was located in North Africa on the other side of Egypt. That wasn't close to the Levant. It was like you had the Levant, then you had uh, the Sion, and then you had Egypt. And then right next to Egypt, that was Carthage. So that's where it was located. And then it went up into Spain and then curled around from Spain over to Rome. Okay. And this was before the Roman Empire too. So, well, the Roman Empire was probably in its infancy, most likely, because um, there was actually a battle between the Romans, I believe, the Romans and what's his name, the guy with the elephant. My goodness, now I'm having a burn fart. But my whole point is Baal Haman was the chief entity. Okay, now the name Baal Haman has also been debated among the scholarly circles. It's usually translated as Lord of the Brazier or Lord of the Incense Altars. Now, some interpretations connect Haman to the Akkadian word Amun, which is hot, burning, or Egyptian Amun or Aman. Uh, though the connection does remain speculative. That's a far-reaching thing right there, connecting Aman or Amun to Haman. So um, most of them do agree though that it usually has to do with hot, burning, and brazier. So Haman was also the Phoenicians' version of Hercules. All right, just so you guys understand that this is what we're talking about. He would have been the equivalent of Hercules with the Phoenicians. You had Hercules or Hercules, which is Hercules, and that was Greek. And then you had Haman, which was the Phoenician god, the Phoenician version of Hercules. Now, usually in some representations, he appears as like an elderly man. He's supposed to have a long beard, and that's supposed to suggest wisdom and authority. Now, in later Greco-Roman times, he was synchronized with Cronus or Saturn. Okay, that was reinforcing his role as like an ancient, powerful ruler, and this was later on, after the Phoenicians, the Greco-Roman times. So that's something to take into place. Now, Baal Haman was paired with the goddess Tanit. Now, Tanit is the one where the infant sacrifices would have been made through. Now, Tanit was the reptilian goddess who a lot of people have heard about on the island of Crete. Okay, that's who they're talking about. And she was Haman's consort. That's the general word that's being used or used by people. She served as his consort. Now, while Baal Haman was the god of fire and kingship, he was basically the generative force. Tanit represented the celestial, lunar, and material aspects of divinity. Okay, now together they formed a divine couple central to Carthaginian religion, which was basically the combination of both of those deities' attributes. So Baal-Haman, like I said, was associated with fire. And fire is both a life-giving force and a destructive element as well. Okay, now this connection fueled the controversial debate over child sacrifice in Carthage, particularly at the Tophet of Salammbô, which that's what you're looking at right there. That is the Tophet of Salammbô. Now, inscriptions and cremated remains, they have been discovered, okay? Some ancient sources, including Diodorus, Siculus, and Plutarch, they claim the Carthaginians sacrificed infants to Baal-Haman in times of crisis. Now, some scholars have argued that the remains found at Carthage on the Tophets were not necessarily sacrificial victims, but rather ritual burials of stillborns or deceased infants. Now, there are stele inscriptions in the Tophets that often mention Molk, which is MLK. The best way to pronounce it in our terms is MOLK, Molk. And that's a term that may refer to like a vow, an offering, or a ritual act. Though its precise meaning is pretty debatable. Like they're still debating over what that actually means. So that's what I'm talking about. Like you have these sacrifices to Haman and sacrifices to Tanit with the inscription MLK on it. Okay. And that is where they're trying to connect Moloch, that's been preached about all over Levant, to Carthage. Okay. And their evidence in the Levant is very, very shaky. Just to put that out there, okay? They really don't have very much information. And when they always talk about it, even the archaeologists do it, which makes me think that they're like religiously biased because they always go back to Carthage. But over here in Carthage, we have all of this information, and like all the stuff that I just described to you about Carthage has absolutely nothing to do with the Jewish or the Christian religion whatsoever. Okay, nothing whatsoever. But they keep going back to it. And if you read the information, you'll find out that is the case. They have shaky evidence, and to reinforce their findings, they always go back to, well, over here in Carthage, there's more evidence that's presented, and that has always been one argument that I have always had when it comes to these people and the claims that they have made. It is completely unfounded, in my opinion. So, with me, that's something that I have found.